Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Okay, welcome back. Lights Out podcast members. Happy to have you. We're doing what we do best, our deep dives. Deep dive, we go in deep with some of our favorite fighters. Another old school guy right here. This is the guy who's not only been a huge fighter, he's a trainer. He kind of does it all. One of the guys, you've seen him many times on TV, either fighting, coaching, doing all kinds of fantastic things. Mike Brown, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. Doing great. Good to be here, man.
That's what I like to hear, my friend. So we usually get on here and bother people for a couple hours, and however much time you want to give us is great. Mike's going to go through your career with a fine-tooth comb and probably tell you stuff you didn't know about it. It'll be interesting. Let's see what he has to say. So just say whatever you think about it.
Hell yeah, I'm pumped.
All right, cool. So Mike, your first fight is April 1st, 2001 for Mass Destruction. It's in Massachusetts, but you always have been billed from Maine. Did you have any fights prior to fighting in Massachusetts?
No. There was no fights in Maine at that time. I mean, it took a long time. There wasn't much in New England going on at that time.
Okay. I would have thought, a lot of times there's a lot of us, especially people had fights around then when there's just not on the record. Like they had them like unsanctioned fights. You guys didn't even have any unsanctioned fights. You had to go down there to fight.
No, I didn't have any. This was there was very little going on in New England. Kipp Kollar was the first guy running shows in New England, and the first ever show I believe was the Rhode Island Valley Tudo. There was 4 of those, and then they changed the name to Mass Destruction. So those were the first MMA shows ever in New England. That is, as far as I know.
I remember.
So, now, had you been training before that and everything? How long had you been training before 2001?
I was actually pretty prepared. I feel like I was I was training, jujitsu since probably 95. Not at good places, but at kind of crappy places. They didn't really know what they're doing. It's this has a jujitsu class over here. This guy went to a seminar. It was very low level, but I was rolling around and trying stuff, and I had wrestled. Then I wrestled in high school, and I was wrestling in college at North University. So we were all kind of rolling around playing, and I was getting jiu-jitsu here and there and boxing a little bit. And my senior year on the underground forum, or whatever it was back then, it was submissionfighting.com or whatever the hell it was.
That's pre-underground forum. Wow.
Right. Whatever it was then. Whatever. Yeah, I don't remember the name.
Sub fighting. Yeah. I was on there. I can't remember. Okay.
My college roommate was like, hey man, this is they're looking for fighters. And he was a better wrestler than I was, but I was a better MMA guy. My boxing and jiu-jitsu was, I thought, better than his. And I was kind of skeptical about doing it, but I was prepared. I'd been training a long time. I'm like, you want to do it? I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it. So we were both scheduled to fight in the Rhode Island show, Rhode Island Valley 204. I ended up tearing my meniscus, getting a surgery. He ended up fighting and winning. And then my first fight was delayed till Mass Destruction. And that was my first one. This kid, his name was Gunnar Olsen. He had 4 fights. I think he retired, but he was he was my college roommate and good friend of mine. He's the one that got me to do it.
Okay. That's wild. So let's go April 1st, 2001. Your lead-in was just kind of screwing around in a wrestling room, probably hitting a heavy bag occasionally, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I was training at a place in Maine called Chase. It was a martial arts place, Chase Shindo. It was they were rolling and they were boxing a little bit. So I mean, I was training. It was primitive MMA, but they were on the right path.
So it was like a TMA place that was kind of converting to where MMA is. Okay.
That's they saw the guy, the guy that was running the place was he was ahead of his time and kind of saw what was going on. but this is also Maine. This is like, it's not a super high level of combat sports, to be honest, you know?
Let me ask you a quick question, Mike. Jump in here.
Sure.
You know, some of the guys that we interview come to the sport with a lot of like, you know, street fights and stuff like that. And I gotta be honest with you, you seem kind of like the nice kind of guy and stuff. Did you have a lot of street fights, or was it really about competition for you?
No, competition. I was always intrigued with fighting. I was the guy always like pushing my way to the front of the pack. If there was ever a fight, you know, I always was drawn to it for whatever reason, loved fighting. And then when I saw the first UFCs, I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I want to learn this stuff. You know, like I was always fascinated with fighting for some reason.
Yeah, that's wild. All right. So here, April 1st, 2001 at the South End Community Center, you pull up to the venue. You've obviously got your roommate with you, and you're fighting Jeff Darienzo. And, you know, what's crazy is on the undercard, you got Nuri Shakur and Kirik Jenis, who was, you know, the owner of the Underground Forum and, you know, that fighting forum. So
really?
You pull up there. What are your feelings walking into it? Because, I mean, it's almost as if like you're a college wrestler, you're an educated guy, you're a smart guy. Did you know that your life would forever change after that day in regards to the direction it was going?
I mean, no way. I mean, at the time, there was no money to be made, especially if you're a little guy. You know, you're just doing this for the sake, just to say you did it, just to, you know, show that you could fight. You know, it was just very interesting. There was no career path. I mean, what were the heavyweights making at that time? You know, they weren't making that much. There was no money for the small guys. You know, I just did it to say I did it.
What weight class did you wrestle at back then?
In college, I was at I wrestled at 149. My senior year.
So what were you fighting at 155 then?
It was weird. I was at 155 same day weigh-ins. Massachusetts was doing same day weigh-ins, so it was like very different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So it was like an early version of ONE FC, is what he's trying to tell you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it was primitive. It was primitive.
Yeah. Were those mass destruction fights unpaid? Were they amateur fights like that, or?
They were like a couple $100. Okay.
Oh, really?
You were getting paid well. What are you talking about? That was good pay.
You know, Mike, I must admit on our prep, you know, your second fight was August 4th, 2001. You know, a few months later, you fight Vinny Brightman, but it's a last minute fight. I think you had a locker room switch at that point. Like your opponent pulled out and you kind of showed up and you had a switch of opponent.
I don't remember now. I think so. I think I was supposed to fight before that show, and I had a no call, no show. Like my opponent just didn't show up.
Was it Brad Ferguson?
Yeah. That fight. Yeah, that fight just didn't happen. Like you're there at the event, ready to fight, and it was same day weigh-ins. So it wasn't like we weighed in. You know, we're waiting for him to come into the weigh-ins, and it's like, where is he at? Where is he at? And then it's like the teammates are like, we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. And you're like, this is not good. Not
good. So you line up with you know, Vinny Brightman, and, you know, again, another first round submission. And, you know, at that point, were you thinking like, this is going to be something pretty serious for you, or were you still just kind of coasting?
Just dabbling. No, just dabbling. And I think at this point now I'm like, you know what? I want to have 5 fights, because if I had 5 fights, that would make me a real veteran. You know, if I had 5 fights, I could consider myself an MMA veteran or NHB veteran. And you know, that
NHB,
would be cool.
I love it.
Yeah, I hated the term MMA.
Yeah,
I hated the term MMA when that came out. Hated it.
That wasn't hardcore enough. Yeah, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
It was just no. It was just like, oh, you MMA martial arts. Oh, my nephew does kung fu. You know, like you're like, oh, I hated it.
Hey,
yeah,
nothing beats no holds barred, man. You can't beat that. No holds barred, but that was really, now, what was it really no holds barred back then? Could you headbutt? Could you do those things?
No. It wasn't. But I'm just saying, I hated the term when they did come with mixed martial arts. I hated the martial arts thing.
Yeah.
Because that time nobody knew what it was. You know, it was like UFC, NHB, cage fighting, whatever. But the mixed martial art, it was like you got everybody, you would tell them, they start talking about their cousin who was a black belt karate, their 8-year-old,
Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but right around that 2001, that was kind of when I remember a lot of my fights, you were allowed to headbutt, needed the head on the ground and soccer kick, but that was like 2000, like before 2000. So I think right around 2001, that's when that started going away. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, I missed that.
Those were fun times.
Right around that time, and Chris has just talked about this. It's like you're at a family party, or you're at a work function, or you're at school speaking with teachers, and then you say, "Yeah, I just fought in an NHB fight." Like the air got let out of the room, and they were,
I'm going to go over here and talk to this parent now. The teacher.
Yeah. I think they probably didn't believe you, or they thought you were lying, or maybe you're talking about pro wrestling. Most people, I think a lot of people didn't believe it.
Yeah, there's problems in a Brown household. Just leave him alone. So,
Mike,
after this, let me get this one, Miguel. This involves yourself. So, what happens from there is you kind of go from doing the New England thing, and how far of a drive is that for you? Going to the mass destructions?
A couple hours.
That's not bad. And then you wind up in Evansville, Indiana, with the genius duo of Miguel Iturrate and Jeff Osborne. And Miguel does an incredible solid for you, lining you up against Hermes Franca.
I got a good one.
What was that third fight?
It was, wow, if you really look at the other guys, it was probably his first real fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See,
I didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, I bet you Miguel did.
Well, here,
explain yourself.
Here's the situation. I'm going to assume, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, that at some point in the mass destructions, because Kipp Kollar was the known guy back then, so he attracted some people. He also had his grappling tournaments, and that's where maybe you saw Nuri, and that's how you got attracted to Jim D'Souza, Keith Rockel. How'd you meet them? Because it was with that crew that you came over to Hook and Shoot.
No, that's why I was really well prepared for my first fight. Even before I had my first one, I was already driving to Massachusetts to train with those guys. I had maybe talked to Joe Cuff online or something, and I was driving I would stay weekends in Massachusetts and train with Keith Rockel.
Okay.
And Keith was like the first guy in New England really to make it to the UFC. I looked up to him quite a bit. He did a lot for me. He did many things for me. And then he also he was fighting in Hook and Shoot. He was Hook and Shoot, some sort of champion they had. They had a couple belts. I think he had won one of their titles. He won their Pancrase title. I think they had a Pancrase title, and won the open hand title there.
Yeah.
And he was going back there. Go ahead.
I was just going to explain, and that's how you get Hermes Franca in the beginning, because you were coming with a prepared dude, and he'd already told me, "Hey, this guy hasn't fought before, or he's a new guy, or whatever."
Chris,
and then your team overwhelmed my people. So
listen to this.
You paid the price for it.
Yeah.
Hey, what is Hermes? How many fights had Hermes Franca had at that time?
No, 0.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Wait.
No.
0 in the United States.
No, I mean, I don't think he had any MMA fights. No, he
looked pretty seasoned for a guy making his MMA debut in a foreign country.
He didn't. No. I trained with. I came to ATT after, so I know his story too.
Okay.
I mean, that was just he didn't have. I mean, I didn't. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I hadn't really seen much of that. Nobody was tapping me in Maine and it was very seldom in New England, at the time, So I felt nobody's going to tap me out.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize the levels of jiu-jitsu at that time.
Yeah. And the guy he came with, Rockel, was 6-0 in Hook and Shoot, including a win over Rich Santoro, one of Mike's local guys there from Chicago. He beat Adrian Serrano for the title that
That's no joke.
That was his big win. And
back then.
He made it to the UFC.
So yeah, and in the UFC, in the second round, he took a loss to Eugene Jackson, but he did make it there. After that, he fought a lot of hard people. Dennis Kang, Leo Dalla was a bit of a
Raquel, that was a good win. Yeah, Leo Dalla was a tough fight. Yeah.
The thing with Keith Raquel is he's a guy who was already a man. You know, he wasn't.
He was like 40 years old.
Yeah, so he was already a man.
No, he was literally.
And coming over to this, he was always fit, always in great shape. But he was an older guy, therefore very reliable. Checked off a lot of boxes, you know. And then his team became very much part of the rotation. That's where Mike came from. Mike. So take it away, Mike. Sorry.
The real question is, how long was that drive to Evansville, Indiana?
We actually flew.
Wait.
I think
did the promotion pay for it?
No.
Oh,
no. So listen. So Keith had money. Keith was a guy fighting for fun. Keith had his own electrical company. You know, he was a very successful guy. He was fighting just for the love of fighting. You know. And I think they got me like a $250 Naga sponsor, like to help me pay for my flight. Keith didn't care about the flight, you know. But I remember this is pretty funny. Like I remember my purse was supposed to be $250 and $250, right? So I end up getting triangle choked to Hermes. I'm heartbroken. I'm so disappointed. And Miguel hands me an envelope with cash in it. I don't want to like look at it. I feel
how much
an asshole.
How much?
So I go back to the hotel, $200.
Oh my God!
And I'm like, son of a bitch. What am
Mike? This is very important. See, there's 50 Fight Club members. Like we concentrate on 50 Fight Club members, and one of the underlying questions is, have you ever been ripped off by a promoter? And now we've got the guy that stole money from you in this interview.
$50.
Now hold on. Now maybe what it was is, you know how you get a finish bonus? Like maybe it was a reverse. You know what I mean? You guys keep it 50. Is that what it was, Miguel? I've never heard of that. Slow down.
No, it was a reverse finishing bonus.
You took that $50 and gave it to Hermes Frank, I bet, man. Is that what happened?
Was Miguel drinking at the event, Mike? Tell the truth.
It may have been.
I don't remember.
It may have been spent at the Lucky Lady. So.
Chris, that I don't remember. I will take as a yes.
We never fixed that, Mike. We never paid you $50. I mean,
I wasn't.
We sometimes have a good reputation over this.
Because I didn't open it in front of you. I was like, I'm not going to go tell them now. They're not going to believe me. I'm just like, whatever, you know.
Oh man. Okay.
Well, so if I asked it, maybe you would give it to me, you know.
All right, Miguel. If we start racking up too many of these stories, I'm going to start picking guys that owe me favors to do these. But that's cool, Mike. All good. All good. I'm sorry.
So bring us through Hermes.
I can cut
this. So Hermes Franca, he's there with Conan. You know, like a guy you're working out with right now. After that bout took place, did you have conversations with them, or was it just straight business and done?
No, just business and done.
Okay, because at some point I
ran into them later on. I ran into them at another Massachusetts show.
Okay, so then a little further down the line, Hermes Franca, I mean, is no joke. I mean, there's no arguing that he was a tough cookie. So then on your seventh pro fight that's listed, you're out in Hellraiser in Toledo, Ohio, for the Tournament Fighting Championship, and you fight Mark Homnick, another future UFC guy.
Yeah,
and he would. What can you recall? Like, did you deal with Sean Tompkins or anybody like that at that event?
Yeah, this was all Keith setting stuff up. Really, Keith was kind of acting as my manager, I think. He had the contacts, I was just kind of going where they fought, and I think I got brought out there to fight one fight. I beat somebody fairly easily. And then it was like, okay, do you want to fight for the title? Okay. And it was Homnick. And I think for that one, I got $350 and $350. So I made like $700 for that one.
Killed it.
Yeah,
A
crushing
lot of ramen noodles. That's a lot of ramen noodles, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, Hermes and Homnick both fought
Not
for
bad
UFC
for them.
belt.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, that's a phenomenal fight. Like, yeah, if you've got that in your library, Jesus. I mean, that's something that, regional promoters get jealous of. No, for sure. That's a phenomenal fight. And you know what's crazy is Homnick, right after that fight, he fights Tommy Lee in Extreme Challenge in one of the most devastating slams, like head spikes that you'll ever see in mixed martial arts. I was shocked that
I never saw it.
I was shocked he even fought again after being on the receiving end of it, because it was frightening. It was one of the scariest slams I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
For sure.
I never saw it. I only heard about it.
All right. So then you kind of get through those two guys. You've got Hermes and you got Homnick, and both guys future UFC veterans. And then on the Absolute Fighting Championship, December 6, 2003, Lee Remedios. But this time you've got a guy that was in the UFC that came back down to the regional level, and then you fight him. What was the buildup like mentally for you heading into that fight? Because arguably at this point, it's your biggest fight.
At this point, I'm 9-1, solid record, and it's actually the perfect fight for me. He's a UFC veteran, but I'm fighting him at 45. He fought at UFC at 55. We were both small. It was a good matchup. He was like the perfect UFC caliber guy that maybe I could beat at that time.
Since I match made this one, you can say I charged him $50 for it.
Just saying.
It was a good matchup for me,
How was that weight cut? I mean, you wrestled in college at 149, and now you're, dipping down a few pounds underneath that.
No, I mean, but when I was at 49 in college, it was same day weigh-ins.
Okay.
So 145 day before is much different,
And I don't think from like all those guys, Rockel, the team the pedigree he came from, already had discipline. Those guys never missed a weigh-in or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I had grown up wrestling, so the weight cut. I mean, it was not easy, but like I knew what I was doing,
Now, do you feel like at this point in your career, you're kind of taking this a lot more serious now, and so it's a little different when you're cutting weight for wrestling. You got to maintain this whole time, but when you have 6, 8, 10 weeks to make weight, it's a total different atmosphere. Do you feel like you were really starting to take it serious at this point?
Yeah, I mean, your goals. I always had small goals. My goals kept changing. I think at this point now, it's like, oh man, I think I could maybe make it to the UFC. I would love to say that I fought in the UFC, not to make a career, not to make money, but just to say that I made it there at this time. So there was no money to be made, it was just to get there kind of deal. You know what I mean?
What's crazy is like the beginning UFC guys, like in the early 90s, mid 90s, I should say, were actually making more than the UFC guys were in early 2000s. So including
the little guys, especially small guys.
I'm even talking heavyweights.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the reason why the UFC was sold for so little. They bankrupted. You know what I mean? Like they just couldn't sustain what they were doing. So I mean, it reminds me of some of the other organizations we've seen when you just pay people what they quote unquote deserve. You got to be bringing in money.
And they fold. Yes, and they fold.
Yeah, they fold.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to the old UFC. They were paying
so many.
Didn't help.
Yeah. So Schultz in UFC 9, $50,000.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
UFC wasn't doing $50,000 paydays, in the early 2000s. They absolutely were not.
Yeah.
And he was an undercard guy fighting Big Eddie Goodrich.
I didn't know that. I never heard that.
Yeah. So you got 8 wins in a row, and then you get the call for UFC 47, April 2nd, 2004 against Genki Sudo. How did you feel walking into that matchup, especially up a weight class? Like, how does that conversation take place? They know you're a 45er, and they offered you a fight at 55.
At that time there was there is no UFC 145, so it's like, just to say you did it, you want to do it, and like, I think I actually got an offer before that to fight Yves on a short notice fight in the UFC. And I was like, I turned it down. it was like a couple weeks notice. And I remember Nick Ackerman ended up taking the fight that I turned down, and Nick ended up getting knocked out. And I was like, dodged a bullet on that one. Glad I didn't take that fight.
I think it was Nick Aguilar.
Yeah, yes. Nick Aguilar. Nick Ackerman is a wrestler.
Yes.
Nick,
a tough wrestler, Nick Ackerman.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, I fought on UFC 47 with you then, but that was a really good card. I believe that was that Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell won?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
it was a
good card, man.
Yeah, they kind of pulled out all the stops on that. So what was it like kind of dealing with Genki Sudo, like at weigh-ins and, day of the event?
Super respectful, super good guy. Man, I was a big fan of his. I wasn't in there to win, in my heart of hearts. I mean, of course I wanted to, but I really wasn't that level. To be honest,
and up a weight class. I mean, let's talk.
I'm really
a pretty big disadvantage.
Ready to be there. I mean, I liked it because he was more of a grappler, which is I prefer to fight a guy like that. At least if I lose, I'm just going to get tapped. I'm not going to get like destroyed, So it was. I didn't quite know what he had, but I think he actually picked me. I think they gave him a bunch of guys to choose from. And he chose me out of the pack. He was pretty selective with who he fought, right? Look at who he fought. He fought a lot of featherweights in his career. He fought Lee Remedios, fought me, Royler Gracie. He was a showman that was picking guys. He was a little bigger than, more experienced, and then he could do some of his entertainment stuff, which I love, man. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Yeah, I think your Lee Remedios, when he had beaten Lee Remedios in the UFC, I think that helped a little. Did he do any antics against you?
He came in like a geisha. Didn't he come in like a geisha or something like that?
Yeah. His opening was like as a geisha girl, and he's like blowing the butterflies around. But I kind of jumped on him quick and punched and and we started wrestling right away. So we didn't have time to do too much.
He fought Lee Remedios at UFC 38.
I love that fight. Yeah, fight was awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of like you got to hand it to the UFC. Whenever they took people from foreign countries at this time, it was always almost like a spectacle. There was somebody special coming, and Genki Sudo absolutely falls into that category. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody that watched him fight one time and say they're not a fan of his.
Yeah.
Who set that fight up for you? Was it still Rockel and team, or were you
he was a team elite at that time. You were a team elite at that time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Keith did.
Did you deal with Joe Silva? Because he'd be matchmaking by then.
I mean, I think Keith did it all. I mean, I wasn't talking to anybody,
Okay. Mike?
What about Phyllis Lee?
Had to be Joe.
Did Phyllis Lee ever try to slip you a business card?
Say that again?
Did Phyllis Lee ever try to slip you a business card?
I was talking to Phyllis Lee at some point. I was trying to get in a pancreas, I believe. Okay. I don't remember.
Okay.
I think Keith was talking to Phyllis Lee.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I can see Phyllis liking Keith. I can see that. We make fun of Chris, but Phyllis was prolific at that time. I mean, she could help you out. So, Mike, take it away. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so then you take you have obviously we're disappointed in the outcome of Genki Sudo. You lose in the first round to triangle armbar, and you take 6 months off before going to combat zone. What is the reason for that? Did you get injured in that fight?
Yeah, actually, tore my arm up pretty good. It was like a triangle armbar, and I popped something in my arm. I had an avulsion where a piece of the tendon pulled a little piece of the bone off. He armbarred me, and it my arm popped, and I tore some things in there. I didn't need surgery, but I was injured for a bit.
Okay, so you take 6 months off, and then you jump in at Combat Zone October 2nd, 2004 against future UFC star Joe Lauzon.
Another Massachusetts guy.
Yeah.
Who was undefeated at this time, Joe Lauzon. And, you lost in the third round to rear naked choke. I could not find that video. I looked everywhere for it.
It was small. This one crushed me. This was broke my heart more than any other fight. This was a fight where I was I was winning the first, I was winning the second, I was winning the third, easily up all 3 rounds.
Oh,
I was gassing out. I got reversed and submitted in the third, like with a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go, and I was devastated, man. Like I was really close to retiring after that. I gassed hard. I was like squeezing on subs. I haven't really got good at pacing yet. You know, my pace wasn't great. Even though at this point I had 10 fights or 11 fights, but my pacing wasn't good because I was always like coming out too hard, and most of my fights most of them were quick, you know, where I would either put the guy away or I got beat quick by Hermes and Genki, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very similar. I talked about when I fought Nick Diaz when he was a young guy, and I was already a veteran, and he beat me in a split decision, and I thought about quitting then too. So I know what you mean. You're just like, man, I'm getting beat by these young guys. Is this even what I need to be doing anymore? I'm wasting time. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to come back from. But once you do, I think you kind of reevaluate and you move on. And it's tough though, man. It really is tough.
Yeah, Lauzon turned out to be pretty good though. So, you know.
Yeah, that's right. So did Nick. I'm
did.
pretty happy about it. Yeah.
And Diaz as well. But yeah, and I didn't know at that time. To me, I thought he was terrible. You know, I'm like, this guy's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, what am I doing? If I'm losing to this guy, but then he kept winning and he kept winning, and he went to UFC. He went on to do good things. But at the time, and he was local. So anytime, you know, how did you lose to a local guy? You know, like for me, this is like the guy who lives right down the street from me, kind of. You know, you're like, what am I? If I can't beat this guy, I'm not.
Yeah, you're just thinking.
Sport.
You're getting beat by these young guys who aren't even that good. In your mind, that's what you're thinking. Like, how am I in the whole scope of the world if I'm getting beat by this local guy? You know what I mean?
Well, we started this conversation, like, you know, in regards to, like, you know, little bumps in the road at Hook and Shoot. And Chris, one of my favorite conversations that I overhear him talking about with fighters is you've got to be a little bit delusional in regards to, like, be good. Like, you've got to, you know, get your butt kicked and then walk out of there going, well, I can defeat every other person in the entire world. I want to get back in there again. And, you know, you had described when you fought Hermes, very rarely submitted, you know, in the gym that you were in. He's just a black belt, no big deal. I got this one. And it's Joe. And when you lose 2 in a row, that type of thinking is hard to keep up, even though it's super necessary, to have in order to become a champion. Yeah.
But I knew I had to make a move because I was like, I was not getting pushed. We had a decent team, but it was like the best guys were bigger guys. The best guys kind of the team were Jorge Rivera, and Keith, bigger guys, and Keith. Yeah. And so there wasn't a lot of strong talent, lower guys. So I'm like, I need to go to a place where there's some strong, good lightweights for me to go with.
Okay, so you left for Florida shortly after that.
Yeah. So after the Lauzon fight, I literally, if I lost my next one, I was going to retire for sure. I went and I fought. I won the AFC belt against Lee Remedios. I defended that against Renato Tavares down in AFC down in Florida. And then I was chatting with Liborio and Dan Lambert, and they're like, "Hey, you should come down and visit and train." Da 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 da. And then they made it easy on me, man. I just went and visited once and loved it.
So how was the conversation with your previous coach? I mean, you're not the type of guy that just packs up his bag and leaves, and then you don't show up at the gym anymore. I know, like Mike Brown, and you probably had a conversation about the move.
No, Keith was super cool. I mean, the guy did so much for me, and I don't think that I don't remember exactly how it went, but I think I told him I was talking to them and I want to go down there and train with some of the lightweights. He was like super supportive, and I mean, everybody up there was. I think everybody understood, like.
How could they not, man?
Yeah, no, of course. No, everybody was cool.
You have to get pushed. That's stupid. Yeah.
But some coaches aren't like that, though. Like a coach loves his student when he wants his student to be better than he can get them. Do you mean that's?
I think the problem is too many coaches, they see you as their ticket, and when you leave them, that's their what's the right word? That's their,
their meal ticket, their claim to
not
fame.
meal tickets, the right word, but that's their validation. You're their validation. Yeah. So when you take that away, they're like, oh, you can't do this to me. They care more about themselves than the fighter is what I usually gather from people like that.
100%. But I think Keith had so much else going on in his life that this wasn't his life, like he was big. He had a family. He was successful company. He had money. He had a band, like this guy does a lot of things. I don't think like if MMA was his only thing, then maybe he would be, more upset and like you're saying. But I think he was really cool.
Yeah, that's right there with the character that I described in Hook. You're just a stand-up guy, probably dealing with, an electrical job or, matchmaking for his guys. Just a stand-up dude.
Yeah. That's a special guy. So from there,
so obviously hold on. When you went down to American Top Team, they opened arms. They welcomed you. Everything was good there, right? I mean, we fit right away, obviously.
Yeah.
Well,
Liborio was super friendly.
Tavares was their guy.
Dan Lambert.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, they were still cool. I remember I actually met Dan Lambert at a hardcore fighting show that I had fought at. I had fought maybe my 5th or 6th fight. They brought some guys down there to fight. It's where Jay-Z Cavalcante fought Lauzon, and I fought Renat Mirzabekov. But I remember talking to Dan. Dan was super, super cool. I actually thought he was like somebody's dad. I'm like, oh, this guy's cool, man. This is like some dude's dad from ATT. Because I remember seeing him at the Hermes fight. But
he was everybody's dad.
Somebody's dad, right?
Everybody's.
It's his airplane.
That's true. That's true. But no, super nice, super humble, and so unassuming. You'd have no idea who he is or what he's done for the sport.
Oh man, so much.
Humble as hell.
Mike, we kind of repeat this on the show. We go kind of out of our way not to talk about like the kindness of Dan Lambert, because all that's going to do is just open up the doors for people that he doesn't need to deal with. But the contributions to the sport of mixed martial arts that Dan Lambert has made, it'd be very difficult to find somebody that's even close to doing what it is he has done.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, no, we got a world of respect. All right, so now you're at the American Top Team. You're settling in, and right away they start sending you to Japan. You fought in Deep twice and the greatest common multiplier, our greatest common multiple once. So you're taking international trips now. Like you can see the progression. Massachusetts, you have a plane ride to HOOKnSHOOT in Evansville, Indiana. Now you're moving to Florida. So where along this journey do you say to yourself, this is what I want to do for a living? Because in the beginning of this interview, you said you weren't there yet.
Well, now I'm just like, I don't know. I'm all in. What else am I going to do? There's still no money to be made if you're a little guy.
Well, he was avoiding working. He was avoiding getting a job.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just crazy. What else am I going to do? It's too late now.
Let me ask you, Mike, when you hit Top Team, though, were you straight a competitor there going to learn? Because you're also, that coach mentality, you were a player coach with the Massachusetts guys.
No, I mean, my goal was, I don't know, I don't know what I thought I could do, but I just wanted to be as good as I possibly could and see how far I could make it. I don't even know what that meant at the time. I kind of thought it would be fame and fortune in Japan, that's where the little guys make money, but it wasn't. That's not the case.
Okay, what does your family say to you at this point?
At this time, okay, so I remember my mom always thinking, when are you going to, grow up and stop wrestling? And I'm like, Mom, I'm not even wrestling anymore. What are you talking about?
So at this point, Chris's mom is dropping him off at the airport, just going, what are you doing? What are you doing this for?
Just tap out, Chris. I can't tap out. The fight hasn't started yet. What are you talking about? Don't suspend me for cheating. She said, you know what I mean. All right, whatever, Mom. Pick me up.
So your mom is kind of putting pressure, going, maybe you should, start applying for jobs, kind of get your feet wet a little bit, into the work world?
Yeah, she was kind of pushing me that way. I think then I got married too, like, what year was it? I don't remember what year, but just before I started fighting in Japan. I don't remember what year, but I was married for I was with her a long time, but only married for like a year or so. But after I lost to Imanari, I tear my knee apart. I'm fighting Imanari. I make $1,000, blow my knee out, my knee's destroyed, and I lose. And then I think then she was like, when are you going to get a real job? And then it's like, then I end up getting a divorce because of this. This is like,
Mike,
not going well.
Mike, we had our Davion, and like we all kind of closed. I mean, Chris was real kind, with his closing, but Miguel and I just pretty much were like, yeah, you've caused divorces in our life. We've been sued because of you. My friends and family say I'm a friggin' loser, but I'm happy where I'm at, So you're kind of in the same boat. Like you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I have nothing,
No,
okay,
but there's one fact. You mentioned Dan Lambert, and we're talking about, an astute guy. Did you have hope? The UFC was starting to do weight classes at this point, or thinking about it, starting to head that way. I mean, what kept you going after Imanari and $1,000? Imanari, a leg lock master, functioned leg up. You got to be like, that hurt. Where do you go from there?
Well, the pays is starting to just get bigger. So in the Imanari fight, I was in this tournament where it was like the winner got $10,000. So I was supposed to fight 2 times in that night. Like I win once, come back a month later and fight twice in one night. I end up losing to Imanari, so I don't fight, But the winner's supposed to get $10,000. And I'm like, $10,000? I mean, I could buy a used Ford Focus for that. This is big money, But I get the consolation prize. I get a torn ACL and $1,000.
How much of that $1,000 did you go home with from Japan?
Oh, this is bad too. I remember I go out to drink that night. And I remember some girl she wants a glass of wine. They're telling me how many yen, 10,000. I can't, 10,000, I can't tell the difference. Instead, I'm buying a bottle. I thought I was buying a glass. I'm buying a bottle, which is like $100, and I'm like, son of a bitch, So $100 down right there. I probably end up, I go home probably like $700 or something.
All right, $300. That's not bad in Tokyo.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I remember specifically buying the bottle by accident and being so pissed off.
I had that. I got charged.
10,000. It sounds like a lot.
I got charged like $2,000 for a bottle of Dom Perignon in Japan, and my guy found a second receipt for a second bottle that they charged me $100 more for because it was pink champagne.
Yeah. Oh, they'll get you that. I mean, you know how it is. It's like 1,000. So you're trying to do the math. 1,000 is that like 10,000 is that $10 or $100? I don't even remember what it was now, but it was that type of going on in my head.
Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So besides that experience, I mean, what did you think about going to Japan? Did you like the experience of being there or not? I mean, I always found like they treated the fighters well, like real fighters, but
it was a long trip,
very long.
It was good. I mean, I did like the respect and stuff like that, but before I went out there, I kind of thought it was going to be like even bigger and more money, and it wasn't bigger. For me. Money. Yeah, no, it really wasn't. And then it was time to look for, I think, a new home. I don't remember where I went after that.
I can tell you. No, that's it. So, you're constantly on Miguel Irate's radar. Obviously, he sees a real young Mike Brown at HOOKnSHOOT and kind of carries you into the AFC. And now Miguel's doing big things with BoDog, which is my introduction to Miguel as well. That in Abu Dhabi, ADCC. And you would fight a guy who you'd mentioned earlier, Yves Edwards, on December 16, 2006. at 155 pounds again.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going up and down, and I was kind of surprised, to see you fight that heavy again.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really my weight, but it was like it was a good money offer. It was like I think it was 15,000.
Oh, look at see Miguel coming through for you now.
Man, dude, you can't be holding that hook and shoot stuff against him. He's
$50.
No, this is by far the biggest payday of my life. So,
well, let me tell you, the behind the scenes, I actually budgeted $14,950 for that fight, and I gave the extra $50 out of my own pocket, so we're clear.
All right, Steven.
But so Yves Edwards now, Chris, Yves is impossible to take down. We've seen this guy fight, a million times. And then to fight him in a ring, it makes it even like that even harder to do. And they use Edwards fight. My God, it's like every single thing with him is a fight. It's a struggle. Like if I just want to move my foot over here, it's a struggle. You want to go for like just move his arm over, and it's just your fight. Yves Edwards, you're in a fight every single movement against him. And was that your recollection of that bout as well?
I mean, he was. I mean, I turned the fight down with him before because I knew he was a tough matchup for me, Mm-hmm. But I think at this time now, my skill set being at ATT long enough where I think I was now really ready for these world-class guys. I wasn't sure if I was going to win, but I was like, I think I'm ready to fight these guys now. And the fight, yeah, it wasn't an exciting fight. It's kind of a boring fight, like I'm trying to avoid his strikes, trying to get him down. But I looked up to Yves a lot, and I was really pumped to get the nod in that fight. It wasn't easy. I remember being worried about his head kicks, and he was a very well-rounded guy, a bit ahead of his time.
Yeah, for sure. And what we see for the first time, maybe it's happened before, but I saw Brad Pickett in your corner, and that's a reoccurring theme for you.
Yeah, he was there maybe for one of the AFCs, but he was a close friend of mine. I was living in a fighter house at American Top Team where, I was living for free for a while, but you never know who's going to be living with you, and one day they dropped this guy off at my door like, hey, this guy's from England. He'll be staying here for 3 months, get to know him. And he became one of my best friends. And even when I moved out and I got a place, he always stayed at my house every time he came to America. Really, really close friend, definitely my closest friend, in the sport of fighting. Yeah, he lived with me for years. Really good dude.
Cool. Now that Russia fight, though, because the fight with Yves Edwards was in Russia, so
yeah,
that's a lot of fun. And this was now get this is BoDog spending, like Dana White said, another billionaire wanted to throw his money away. So we rented a 20,000 seat arena and hung giant photography of like a room, like in a palace. Nobody sat, nobody watched. About 300 people around the ring just for filming purposes. Mike, you remember warming up in that building with the outside and then coming inside? What was all that?
I don't remember the warm-up. I remember it being really weird. I remember it being we were there a long time, like 10 days. It was a lot of production.
Jeez.
There was I remember they had like the army tank for the intro. The army tank gets stuck in the mud. Like I remember they spent a lot of money on production. Crazy money.
Yeah, the intro was all the fighters out in the forest, and like they're being like they had new people in the Russian army, so they got real Russian tanks to chase them down. And at the end, Calvin Ayre pops out and says, "Welcome to BoDog, boys." And that, again, like I said, a billionaire spending his money unwisely.
That was the intro, yeah.
Wasn't there like a vote for the most popular fighter on that event as well that you had won?
Yeah, this was really big for me. So before this, I made the biggest payday of my life was Genki. I made 2,000, 2-2 in the UFC, and I lost. I made 2.
Yeah.
And in the AFC a couple times I made 1-1. So I made $2,000 was my biggest payday. And now I made 15,000 for Yves. And then they had a vote for your favorite fighter thing. and I hit that, and that's 50,000. So now I make 65
so how
grand.
did you organize that?
50.
How did you organize that? Because there had to been. I mean, you're a pretty like mellow guy. To me, you seem like a guy that like you're a big ticket seller, but you're not the guy going, I need you to buy tickets. I need you to buy tickets. You just kind of have people show up, you know?
No, this was, I definitely, when it was $50,000, I was promoting this one. I'm like, I need to help you guys, you know, like let everybody know, hey, vote for me on this thing because I want to do the money, you know? It was, I was definitely telling everybody to do it.
That's cool. You know, did you get a hand from Pickett? Because interestingly, the BoDog handed out that award a couple of times. I think Pickett won one for.
He did.
And the other winner was another guy who's not doing too bad on social media nowadays. A guy named Chael Sonnen.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard of him.
Okay, so why don't we have like an honest conversation here? Did Brad Pickett have somebody that knew how to play the algorithms, or have like some sort of like?
Or did ATT pay someone?
Did
I don't think
one of those.
I mean,
like,
I think
farms
I
find
did
it like
a good job.
Indonesia or
I
something.
think ATT probably did like an email thing. I was promoting it everywhere.
I
don't know.
So.
Maybe.
Because I know Nick Thompson attempted to do it. Nick Thompson found like some Pakistani I don't know, computer farm where they were like registering votes, and then BoDog goes, wait a minute, these are repeat like IP addresses. We got to eliminate like 20,000 of these votes because Nick had like 150,000 votes.
Mike, you mean voter fraud?
Yes.
Voter fraud?
Yes.
Pakistan. Okay, I see.
But
it wasn't Russia. I can take you to December 8th, 2007. You fight for PXF Extreme Fighting. It was like a one and done event, unfortunately, but it had a really good card. And you fought the original MMA internet troll and Manny Reyes.
Yeah.
How do you guys get on each other's radar, and what makes that fight happen?
This was something to do with like Miami Inc. was Ami James was promoting an MMA show for his Miami Inc. television show or something like that. So he was going through American Top Team to make all the fights. And
it was a small show, like maybe 200-300 people.
Yeah, it was made for the Miami Inc. show. You know, It was, I don't even think there was I don't remember if there's even a real crowd or not. It was a small crowd if there was. I remember somehow they thought this Manny Reyes fight was going to happen. I don't even know how that came up. I think he called and said he wanted to fight. He contacted the promoter and said he wanted to fight. They set him up with me or something, and it wasn't on. Then I was literally sparring, and it was like literally a day's notice. It was like, oh, stop training. And it was literally, I think that maybe it was 2 days notice. Maybe that day I had to weigh in. I just weighed in at what I weighed. I weighed in at like 165 or something. He was like 168 or something like this. I just went my natural weight. You know, I think he was doing the same. It was all like the very last second.
Now, but he fought Hermes Franca. Were you with Hermes at that point when he had that fight? Because that was a lot of internet trolling going on.
No, I knew who he was. I knew he was this karate guy, crazy guy, you know.
So why would you take a fight on such short notice out of curiosity?
I mean, I think at the time I was looking for fights. I was trying to stay busy. I think BoDog went bankrupt, and I was now looking for a new home, trying to get busy. I think at this time. So what am I going to do next? I remember, I think that I was contacted by IFL. I was thinking about going there, or maybe that was right after this. But at this time, I didn't have a home, and I'm just trying to stay busy.
So was that whole card set up last minute? Because it had Micah Miller, Lou Polly, and it had
no. The whole card was set up like, a month. This fight was last minute. Only this fight was like literally. I remember I was sparring and they pulled me out of sparring. And it's like no, and I didn't cut any weight. I just weighed. This is the only time I've ever done this. Just weighed in whatever I weighed.
Nice.
Like, oh, okay, well, whatever you weigh, all right. Because I mean, I knew who he was, and I knew it was. Didn't really matter to cut weight, Yeah,
I
knew he was.
At that time, I think you were working with Carlau Diaz, and Carlos, he was dropping Carlos's name, who he was dating. He was dropping her name. Carlos actually tried to physically give him $1,000 just to fight him. Like, no, we're not fighting for this. I will give this to you just so I could beat the shit out of you. I mean, Manny Reyes really concentrated on the American top team for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably mentally ill, right? There's something really wrong with the guy, to be fair.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for a fight, you've got, a literal army of people that have the ability to really hurt you at the American top team.
He was crazy. No, I think he was literally he was a little off,
Wow.
And,
wow.
But I think at the time he had a decent record, so I'm like, all right, yeah, it won't be bad. This will be stay busy, make a little paycheck, keep it going.
Do you remember what you made for that fight?
I'm probably a couple $1,000, something like $1,500, $2,000. It wasn't much.
All right. So at this time, a little further on, that was December 8th, 2007. By June 1st, 2008, WEC started making real big waves. And WEC 34 is your entry against, a local guy from my region, Big Frog Jeff Curran.
Yeah.
What do you recall from that fight?
I remember he was, I had known him before. Good jiu-jitsu, I had known his name for a long time. He was one of the top 10 featherweights for quite some time. He fought for the WC title. I thought it was a good matchup, and I knew it was a chance to put my name high in the rankings, because I think he was, if you look at most rankings, he was in the top 2 or 3 at that time period.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was on the Pulver-Faber undercard, and it was kind of like an eliminator. Like whoever won that fight, obviously, was getting the winner of that. And the thing with Jeff is this was his 42nd fight at this time.
Ooh.
And the performance that he put forward against you, it's so impressive. It was all the way into the last minute of the last round. He was actively trying. I think he reversed you with a minute left. He was trying to win that fight every second of every round.
Yeah, I remember getting reversed maybe once or twice with I hit that, the crucifix, the side control crucifix where you have the underhook and you control his arm and you can strike him and he's in a bad shot. But he got his feet on the cage and gave a little kick and then put me on bottom, and I'm like, oh my God, I go from side control, perfect position. Next thing you know, I'm on bottom. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it happened to me twice. This was crazy.
Yeah, Jeff, I have to say, I was so impressed with his performance in that. He was there the whole time. Yeah, very, very good performance on his end.
Yeah.
And, which led into, some would argue, your crowning moment, Urijah Faber. Your first fight going into Urijah Faber, the strange thing about this is, usually the champion, whenever he's got a big fight, you fight in his hometown. At this instance, he fights in, Florida against yourself. And in the rematch, when you're the champion, you guys go fight in California.
Yeah, it was backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about Urijah Faber, and I don't know, you've probably talked about this fight a million times, but he used to do those awkward little movements in order to kind of get people to back off. It's almost as if you were expecting some sort of, something off of the cage with the spinning back fist or elbow, and you were waiting for that moment. You capitalized on it. Instead of moving away from it, you committed to it. Yeah. Was that the plan going into that fight?
I mean, I think that was my style. My style was go forward and, punch hard. I throw heavy punches and try to take him down when I can and look for submission grappling. That was my game, really. I didn't have a lot of footwork. I came forward, I threw hard, and I would take you down when I could. That was pretty much my game plan for every fight, and yeah, I caught him with a big shot and hurt him, so.
Now, how was his strength? Were you surprised? I mean, was there any surprise in regards to his strength, or was he kind of like what you expected?
No, I didn't think he was strong. I felt I was stronger. I felt he was quick. You know, he was. I was like I thought, I trained with a really good team at the time. Our team was really rocking at that time. We had a lot of good fighters. ATT was killing it. I was confident. You know, I knew what I was capable of, and I knew I could compete with anybody. And honestly, I thought I was the bigger, stronger guy. You know, and I loved I was the underdog, but I felt like the bigger, stronger guy. He not long after that he went down a weight. You know.
Well, if you guys
not because of me, but just because of the sport, he was smaller for the weight. You know.
Well, if you look at both of your bodies and diet, like he's primarily a plant-based guy. Like he doesn't eat a lot of meat, if at all. Like I'm not sure he even eats meat. And you're obviously a carnivore, and you got these two guys standing next to each other. You can see the difference, like in the body type.
Is he a vegetarian or?
Yeah, I met him. I met him like right around that time, and he told me like just almonds and salads, and I'm almost positive he does not eat meat, and that came out of his mouth.
I'm not surprised. I guess. Yeah.
From California.
Yeah, he's
he's like a hippie, healthy guy. Yeah. He eat a lot of meat. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, he was absolutely raised in a hippie commune. That's out of his mouth to me. So. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's what he did tell me. Would you say that is the crowning moment of your career?
Yeah, probably. Those are probably my most famous fights. Those fights. To me, the Yves win was big for me too. I always looked up a lot up to him, but yeah, those were my most popular fights. The Leonard fight was an exciting one. I like the Leonard Garcia fight. It was good.
Well, here, let's continue this. So you then, defending your title, go to Leonard Garcia's hometown and fight him, as the champion in his hometown.
Yeah. I was getting booed.
Weird.
I got booed there, got booed in Sacramento. I don't know. I just was like, maybe this is what we do, like a little bit. But I was pumped. It's crazy. I was confident as hell. And you know how it is when, dude, confidence is so huge. When you're confident, you're so dangerous. It's crazy how valuable confidence is. Even if you're not any good, confidence helps so much.
Now, Yves Edwards was in your corner for Leonard Garcia.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been training with each other up until this point?
He came to American Top Team after he fought Masvidal. So he fought me, then he fought Masvidal, then he came to ATT, and we became good buddies.
Yeah, that's a legend. Yves Edwards is a friggin' legend.
Yeah. He's a good friend, another good friend of mine. He would stay with me. He would stay at my house a lot when he would come to, and I would corner him in his fights. We became really good friends.
Yeah, it seemed like you, Brad Pickett, Yves Edwards. It was kind of like you three were constantly.
I learned a lot from both of those guys. Some of the guys I learned the most, made my biggest gains is just like training at night, playing with, playing with technique, flowing, messing around, and kind of figuring things out and making big gains doing that type of training with those two guys.
Yeah, Yves is one of those guys that's an absolute professional.
Those are two pretty good stand-up fighters for a wrestler to get together with. Pickett's got all that
boxing,
in England, and I've said it. I think he may not be the most powerful striker, but Yves Edwards may be the most elegant striker, more than Anderson Silva, just to watch.
Yeah,
he did some beautiful things, man. I learned so much. It's like we're kind of trading ideas, trading knowledge. They were showing me like striking ideas. I'm showing them some of the grappling stuff I'm doing. And, all of us were getting better doing it.
Now give me a second here. Cause right around this time is also, you're getting your high point. Also starting to be the high moment for somebody named Kevin Ferguson. Kimbo Slice. You remember Kimbo? So talk to us how Kimbo came on your radar, and I'll let Mike take the interview back over.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a legend, man.
But it was right around that time, 2007, 2008 is when he debuted. Was he already with ATT? Were you helping him? Because I think you had a run there where you coached Kimbo, didn't you?
At the end, yeah, but I was with him at the end. Like, not, I mean, I wasn't really coaching when I was fighting, you know? So when I was fighting, you know, I mean, except with like Brad and Eve, but not really coaching. These are my buddies that I'm cornering, you know?
That makes sense. Okay.
You know, for the Urijah Faber fights, Liborio wasn't in your corner.
Say that again?
I didn't see Liborio in your corner for your first Urijah Faber
I think
fight.
he was in the first one.
Was he?
He might have been in both. He was in the first one for sure.
Okay.
The second
I
one.
can usually pick him out. I must have missed him. I can usually pick him out. He's not. You know, he's a
I mean,
guy.
you know, I forget. I would like. I think after that one, I started having like maybe. I don't remember. I mean, I was varying it up. I think he was there though.
Okay.
I started having Brad shortly after that. He was, you know, we became closer friends, and I just realized I'd rather be, you know, I like to be comfortable, having my friend there, and you know, he made me relax, and he was my training partner too. So.
Okay, so in your second Faber fight, did you realize that he broke his right hand starting the second round?
I remember something being wrong with him, but I didn't know exactly what. And I remember later on, I think my corner told me he broke his hand, but maybe they even told me the wrong one. But I mean, it's confusing anyway, because I'm still getting hit. I know he's hurt, but it's like he's doing really well, like elbowing and yeah, he was doing a good job, you know. So it was like I was still thinking he's still dangerous, you know. So like I didn't feel like he was a complete sit and duck yet, you know. He was doing a good job even out.
So I've watched this fight like maybe 20 times. So in the second round, it appears he breaks his right hand. And then in the fourth round, it appears he breaks his left hand. So he left that fight with like literally just his elbows that he was using. And it's like, it's almost something out of a movie. You know, had he won, this would, you know, have been a culminating moment. And, you know, speaking of which, like at 1 minute 30 left in that fifth round, do you recall the choke that he had you in? Like, how tight was that?
Yeah. I mean, it was a high elbow guillotine, but like, yeah, the place goes crazy, but that's the defense to high elbow guillotine is roll out, you know? So he goes high elbow, I roll to my back, punch my hand through. I mean, this is what I do this is what I teach. If somebody runs a high elbow guillotine, you can't go into it. You got to go out of it. But because I go to my back, people go crazy, you know? It was a good attack, you know? He got under my chin. So yeah, I go to my back, I punch my hand through, and then I wrestle into him and go into his legs.
Interesting exchange. Like it was very, like, you know, sitting at home, it was very dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because like it's a good threat. It was a legitimate threat, you know. And he's got a good guillotine series.
Okay. Well, you know, why don't we open it up to some of the questions, like, you know, about his training and American Top Team. You know, I'll start. I mean, Marcelo Garcia was working out with you guys for a while. Did you guys ever get to roll?
Many times, yeah.
Oh my God, what was that like?
Best guy I ever rolled with. Yeah, I mean, there were days where I did a little better than others, but there were some days where I'm tapping 5 times in 5 minutes. You know, it's like tap, 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 tap. You know, like.
I got you, Mike. I got you trapped here. Is Garcia the best guy you ever rolled with, or is Liborio the best guy you ever rolled with?
Oh, I mean, they're both like whip my ass, but like to me, it was like Garcia's even smaller and closer to my weight, so it's, you know, obviously it was hard for me to appreciate because Liborio's like not even really trying because he was also much bigger and stronger than me, so it's hard to tell how good he was, you know. But Marcelo was closer to my size, so I'm like, I should be able to do something with him, you know.
Gotcha.
But he was damn good, man.
So
unbelievable.
Were you there when he had the whole rivalry with Popovich and stuff? Was that when?
No. He came to ATT when he fought MMA. When he had the MMA fight, he trained at ATT for us. So we probably prepared for a year for it or whatever, you know. And no, when he was competing in Abu Dhabi, he wasn't with us, you know. But when he was going into MMA is when he came to ATT.
And who
then I was training for like.
Who got the training? Who was his head trainer? Liborio himself?
Probably like, yeah, maybe Lebo or something. Yeah, I had to guess, probably Lebo.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a short
I was competing on my own world, you know.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now, before we end on your career, you fought Jose Aldo too, didn't you?
It was right.
Yeah,
WEC 44.
I
lost to Aldo.
Now, is that kind of a bittersweet thing because like that's like Aldo's the guy who got the belt in the UFC. Like it was the next step was the UFC taking, you know, the belt. Obviously, a loss to Aldo doesn't look bad, and he's an all-time, you know, fighter. But you know, was that something that sticks to you a little bit?
I mean, I know he was. I mean, he beat me. He's better than me, you know. But it's a bummer. I'm bummed that it wasn't like I didn't have that belt a little longer to have it into the UFC. And because now today everyone knows what the UFC is. Nobody knows what the hell WEC is, you know. Well, a lot more prestige in that UFC title.
Yeah, if I may counter, like if you want to look at like the magnitude of how big that fight was, neither of you guys had lost in 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, like, but just today's standard, it's like when you talk about the WEC, nobody knows what that is, you know.
Yeah, but the weird thing,
he's very good.
The weird thing about that is there was no UFC 135, 145. You know, I mean, that was the best in the world. The WEC was. That's why they brought them over, because they didn't have that in the UFC really. You know what I mean? So it was the same. I mean, the UFC kind of counts it as the same, but you're right. It was. I think you're right that it doesn't get the respect that it deserved. But those were the best 135, 145 pounder fighters in the world
at that time. Yeah, it's and I still believe that, like, at this time, you know, Aldo was probably the best 45er of all time. Like the reign he had the best reign, the longest reign.
It's like a 13-year run without it's either 10 or 13 years. I'm almost positive it's 13, but it might be 10. The guy never lost. Like there's statues of people that have done less than Aldo has. You know, like
it was a really good run. It was an impressive run.
Well, here, but now let's look at some, like, people are coming out of the woodwork too. Like at WEC 51, you fight Cole Province, you beat him in a minute 18. He's a 4-time Division II national champion.
Yeah, good wrestler, but not a lot of MMA experience. But I have a lot of respect for wrestling because I wrestled, so I know how tough that is. So I was happy with that. But
then you know, after
that's legit.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and then after he fights you, he never fights again. And you know, now I looked him up on I think I looked him up on social media. He's doing, you know, medical sales.
You really
the different paths people take.
Yeah, he probably wasn't super into it. He probably was pretty good at it because he was good at wrestling, you know.
No, for sure.
And there was no money at that time either, you know. We weren't making big money.
Yeah.
Now, when you got to ATT, that you're in Florida. Florida also had a couple other schools, you know, and the Avalon brothers in particular are a school that I, you know, had a lot of respect for. It was there that Kimbo sort of started with them, and also Jorge Masvidal started with them. Talk about the Avalon brothers a little bit and how that, you know, how that all plays out, because I know that there's respect there, even if there is also a rivalry.
You know, I honestly don't know a lot about that. That was kind of more before my time. When I came to ATT, they still had a couple guys, but I don't know. They weren't around a long time when I was here, or they didn't have a big competitive fight team when I was here. ATT just had like so many like UFC monsters, so many high-level UFC fighters. And they had a few. They were really grassroots. They did some good things, but I don't know a lot about, honestly, what they've done. I know they brought out Charles McCarthy was one of their guys. George started there. Kimbo started there. I mean, they had some talent, but that's maybe about the extent of what I know.
Okay. But talk about Kimbo, because you had a hand, you said, at the end of his career. Is that and then Masvidal blew up. So compare how the two blew up.
No, really amazing, dude. Amazing to work with both of those guys. Kimbo, I knew his manager really well. Mike Imber is a good buddy of mine. And I think he used to work with Liborio. But then when I was coaching, I think, he went to boxing for a while. And then when he came back to MMA, Mike Imber, I think, guided him to me, I believe. I think that's how it went down. And man, super humble guy, super courageous. He's a guy that, man, everybody called out, everybody talked shit about, and he never said like shit about anybody. But he dared to fight anybody, though, even if he didn't matter this mismatch in skill. You pay him, he'll fight him, no problem. But he didn't. But he never claimed to be the best guy in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. True. He wasn't running his mouth. Like, he had his little catchphrases like, I need, my bread and things.
But he never said, I'm the best in the world. I can beat anybody. No, he was just like, they would set a fight up and he would fight him, and he was like, he was down to, and he beat a lot of guys that he probably shouldn't have beat even, man. He was a good competitor. I think he dealt with pressure really well, because he didn't have a lot of training, man. And he fought guys that were way more experienced, way more skilled.
And
his first fight ever was against the boxer. Who is it? Is it Ray Mercer? His first pro fight ever was Ray Mercer, right? Was it Ray Mercer?
Yeah, Ray Mercer was a gold medal, not a gold medalist, maybe.
Yeah, Olympic world champion, Olympic gold medalist, and he guillotines him in his first ever pro fight. Nobody would sanction it. He fights him in like Tennessee or something. And he's a striker. That's balls, man. That's courage.
All right. So, were you there when Jeff Monson was working out with American Top Team?
Yes.
How was that experience? We love Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's out of his mind. Yeah.
Oh, clearly, we know every time.
Can you give us an example of that? I mean,
he's a guy for your life. He would say like, "Hey, can I borrow your car to go to the store?" And then he'd be gone for like 7 hours. Like just disappear. One of those guys that like. He was on his own path, right?
Who was the last guy? Garrity talking about how he comes in and he sees Monson with his mouthpiece. I tried them all on. This was the only one that fit. You wore my mouthpiece in your fight? Yeah, I didn't even know him. That's Monson.
Yeah, no. Now let me ask you a question. Was Monson was there for a long time, wasn't he? Like an ATT guy with the.
He was. There was a period where he was bouncing around a lot too. I think at one point he opened his own ATT gym in Washington State. So he was in Washington State for a while.
Can you imagine that?
I'm sure it was really run real smooth. Everything was on time.
So
the power would be off. We forgot to pay the bills this month, guys. So we're going to be.
He would literally use a trash bag for luggage, like when he went on the plane. Literally like a black trash bag full of clothes. He would bring it to them and set it down on like the weight thing. Like crazy.
That's some Flavor Flav stuff, man. That's what Flavor Flav used to do back in the day.
Dude, I got a story. I remember my ex-girlfriend. He was staying with me at like the Fighter House. He had a bunch of sweaty clothes in his garbage bag that he used as luggage, and somehow
makes it easy to get rid of it.
It got moved like to the wrong place, and then next thing you know, it got moved to the sidewalk for trash day. All of his clothes, everything he owns, gone, thrown away. in the trash compactor.
Accidentally.
I don't know. I think it was like, I think my girlfriend was like, well, it smelled bad. So I put it outside. And then it was like, it went outside, then it went to the sidewalk on trash day, and we never saw it again. He was so, funny, but he was like cool about it. He's like, oh, no, yeah, no big deal. Just, everything I own, no big deal. Like kind of like little guilt trip, but didn't get too hard on it.
Yeah, the thing is, like, she wasn't entirely wrong about moving that bed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Ugh, this stinks. This is some bad trash. I gotta throw this out.
Yeah, I don't know who was right and wrong in the situation.
That's funny.
It's a gray area. I own. Yeah, he said that.
That's funny. That's funny.
So, at one point, I apologize. So at one point, you've got Robbie Lawler, you got Jorge Masvidal, and an up-and-comer named Colby Covington, all at American Top Team. And I can't imagine, like, handling the politics of all of that. How difficult was it to keep everything in-house and not, like, you can remember, like, whatever the public sees at American Top Team is very small as to compared to, like, what is taking place there?
Yeah, I don't know if I can go into all that,
Well, I mean, okay, fair enough. I saw it.
I mean, when I was competing, Jeff was, always doing his own thing. I remember he got in trouble, like arrested for I think graffitiing the Capitol building.
And he did it put an anarchist sign on or something, didn't he?
Yes, and he did it for ESPN magazine.
I remember that. I remember reading that.
He did. They literally took photos of him. He did it for ESPN magazine. He's like, and then I think, we got pictures of it. So you're going to jail.
It wasn't me.
Dude, I remember him telling me this. I remember him saying when he was there, because he always had a fight coming up. He said he was drilling on the inmates. He said he grabbed a couple of guys and he was drilling on them to keep sharp. So he could, he would be okay to fight when he got out.
I forgot about that. You're right, Mike. That
remember?
That was an incident that made the round of MMA news. That's awesome, man.
Anarchy.
But I remember him saying, I'm thinking how crazy he is. Probably these guys have never trained a day in their life, and he's like, just let me hit some moves on you. Come on, let me just hit this. He's running moves on these people that never trained a day in their life in the jail.
Probably homeless guys.
If you're a jail guard, you're letting that run. You're not. I ain't getting paid enough. Negative.
He's crazy.
Just please lock up when it's time.
Yeah. And Mike, because I know you're going to do it, Davis. Jeff Monson paints Capitol in Google. You got everything you need. Just so.
Mike, now, one thing I've always liked about what ATTs seems like they do a lot there is the guys who've been there, the guys who put in the time and the work. It seems like when their career is over, a lot of times they stick around and they coach like yourself. How was that transition into coaching for you?
Super cool, man. Dream job. I mean, really, I couldn't have a better job. And I've done everything there, man. Yeah, I literally worked the front desk for years, to pro fighter, to now one of the main dudes there, one of the coaches. And to me, it's not a job. I'm in there hanging out every day, bullshitting, with my friends, hanging out, talking about fighting, playing with, new ideas, and it's not a job, man. It's super cool. And yeah, same as Pitbull. Thiago Alves, same deal. Steve Mako, Mako Stamata, Tel Kubis, all of us trained in there and been there for years, and it's fun, man. It's cool. It's not a job. It's it's like a frat house or whatever,
I just really respect that, that they take care of people who've taken care of them and put in their time. And it's just like, you have something to do now. That's fantastic. I love what they do.
Yeah, Dan's super loyal like that. Dan is super loyal.
Yeah.
You've had a front row seat to some of the world's greatest athletes and are sitting in a room exchanging ideas with some of the world's greatest trainers. Like, the position you put yourself in, coming from Maine, kind of fighting in Massachusetts, and where you're at now, when did you kind of come up with the understanding of like this was your life, like this is where you're meant to be?
I mean, I knew for a while that I think they were going to keep me on as a coach, but that to me is a dream job. You know, I was just so grateful, you know, that this is what I chose, because, you know, there was a time when I knew I was kind of outgrowing where I was at, that I had to make a move, and I'm just glad that I chose this path instead of like, you know, where do I go? Do I go to Militich in Iowa? Do I go to American Top Team as a new team? But Militich was like the best team in the world for years when I was. Yeah, Chris was there. Yeah, that's where you were at for a while.
No, I never. I was always in Indianapolis, but like during that time, yeah, for years they were. I mean, Iowa was the mecca of friggin' fighting. Really, I mean,
they had many champs.
Yeah.
And that was maybe a possibility. And I'm like, well, I just happened to run into these people, and they talked to me, and they were friendly, so it was an easier path, you know. And I'm so glad I chose it, because, you know, Pat things kind of dismantled there. You know, he started doing other things. I'm just so fortunate that I'm at where I'm at. Super pumped.
You know, with all of those personalities there, it's almost like a balancing act. And, you know, people behind your back, Mike, say if you've got a problem with Mike Brown, 99.999% of the time, it's probably them. It's not Mike. And the way you guys handle personalities are kind of able to keep things in house. Conan, it's really special what you guys are doing there, and it takes a lot of work. You say it's a dream job, it's just a different kind of work. Like it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, it comes down from Lambert. You know, Lambert's the one that's like really at the end of the day making the moves and keeping things together, and this is his baby, you know. This is what he's put everybody into place, and he's the one that makes the changes when changes need to be made. And I think he's a good judge of character, and he reads people well and knows who's a good fit, and that's why it's running how it is. You know, been pretty successful in the last few years for sure.
Oh, for sure. Do you feel comfortable commenting about like the rivalry between ATT and the Blackzillians, what you guys had at one point?
I mean, it's another local gym, you know. It's and it kind of spawned off us. It was, you know, some of our guys that left, you know, friends of mine, training partners of mine. You know, I was really close to these guys, but you know, then now they're. Anytime you got two, especially world-class gyms in a 15-mile radius, you know, it's going to be a rivalry. You know, you're like literally you got two world-class gyms that are producing, you know, UFC fighters and world-class athletes. You know, that's going to be a rivalry. You know,
but I was surprised.
We got the same problem here. We got the same problem here in Indy.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, no.
Never.
I was surprised to see Cami Barsini go over there, because he's obviously a very talented guy. Yeah, I thought he was going to be a mainstay with you guys for a while.
I mean, I think it was, you know, he was very close with Robbie, and, you know, stayed with Robbie. That's good.
Cool.
Now, since you're talking about special coaches and you have like the whole gamut, why don't you say some nice words about Howard Davis, who's no longer with us, but
Olympian,
a gold medalist, and you know, you who's looking for a little boxing training, maybe you had some time with him.
A lot of time with him. I was very close to Coach. He was one of my favorites, and he was in a corner for several of my fights. Anytime that guy said anything, I listened closely. I had a ton of respect. This guy's, you know, you just knew what I loved about him. It's, you know, he's been there, done that. You know, the guy had like 130 amateur fights and, you know, 40, 50 pro fights, and fought for many world titles, Olympic champion. So when he spoke and talked about fighting, you just knew, you know, that this dude knew what he was talking about. He's not bullshitting you know, and I loved him, man. He was a really good coach. And now his son Daya is a big part of our team. he's Dustin Poirier's, main coach, and he's helped him quite a bit. And he's great.
It does take a special guy to win an Olympic gold medal, and even more special to then transition as a coach to MMA and make it work, because, he made it work and has the respect of everybody there rather than try to teach everybody boxing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was good. He was open-minded, and he was very open-minded, man. He was great.
Did anybody ever make him mad? Did anybody piss him off?
Oh yeah. I've seen him mad, of course. Yeah. I remember, if you pissed him off, he wasn't afraid to let you know. But some people sometimes when I remember people would be like a fighter would be overcoached, telling somebody what to do, and he would lose his mind, and he'd start calling them coach, hey coach, how about you shut the fuck up? Let me handle this. He would, there was a few incidents I remember, but no, you don't want to cross him either. He was serious at times.
Well, that's like the kind of the thing that makes American Top Team special. You get like a mixture of the older guys and the younger guys. Like Alex Davis is another one, judo Olympian out of Brazil. I mean, how could you not respect and love a guy like Alex Davis? Like, he's just, the minute you talk to him, you like him.
Yeah. He's been in the game a long time. Yeah. He knows a lot about the game. And now he's, one of the biggest managers out there and super involved with many high profile careers. And he's seen a lot of things, go down in the sport, he's a old school ATT staple. He's been there a lot longer than I have.
When we interviewed him, he said he introduced us to his fifth wife. He did.
When he finds the one he wants, and
she was like 32.
He's going to be happy. He's got experience.
She was like 32 years old. Yeah, Mike.
Keep getting younger.
What's wrong with that? Stop it.
Hey, so Mike, we've been getting a little nostalgic here, but you were actually front row center for like one of the biggest fights of the year, this year with George, and him getting his shot, and then getting another shot at Usman and stuff. Why don't you give us a little behind the scenes? How's George bounced back? Is he back training? Is he doing that? Because I know he does his social media stuff, but I know he's also a gym rat and very serious. Why don't you give us a little insight if you can?
No, he's back. He's a student of the game. He's he's got maybe the highest fight IQ of anybody I've ever met. This guy has learned more skills than any fighter I've ever seen. He picks a new style or group of techniques and drills until he's got them down. And he's always adding new weapons to his arsenal. I think that's what makes him so great. He's not the fastest guy, not the strongest guy, but I think he's got more skills than anybody that I've ever met. So this is how he's done it, and I learn a lot from him. Every time I'm doing a camp with him, I'm always picking up something new. Whether it's he spends so much time into wrestling, Muay Thai, boxing. His coach he's been working with the longest, Paulino, is like high level Taekwondo guy, so he's got like Taekwondo stuff. But no, he's back, man. He's back training hard.
That's good.
No, he can do it. He'll get back there.
Is he going to try and pull you out of retirement to go to the bare knuckle MMA stuff he's coming out with?
I'm coming to watch. That's for damn sure. I'm a fight fan, man. I love that shit. So yeah. I'll be there, but I don't know about fighting. But I think that's coming out soon. A few weeks.
That's good. Really?
No, I love that bare knuckle stuff, man. I'm a fan. That's what got me into it. That's what made me fall in love with the sport. The early day stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good. All right.
No, is that it? Anything else?
I'm good. Yeah. Excellent, Mike. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
Mike, we really appreciate all the time. You got a lot of good insight. You've been around forever, and you're still doing great things. That's awesome to see. You're with a great team, probably one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. My God! So you're a big part of that. Thank you for what you've been doing, and keep it up, my friend. Thank you.
A big fan of yours, Chris, man.
Thank you.
All those bonuses, man. What do we got? 10? 10 plus? How many?
Yeah, I had 10.
10,
10 I believe. Yeah. It was nice.
Always exciting, man, every time.
That's a goal, baby.
Big fan.
Chris, you made $500,000 just in bonuses?
It's not money. I don't even focus on
money. You need a loan? Talk to Chris.
Money. What is that stuff? I don't even look at the numbers. I don't even know what that
my
is.
wife.
Yeah. Hey, I got 4 kids. I don't have anything. I spend all that shit. You know that.
He gave each one of those $5,000 checks to his wife directly.
and Miguel, you owe me $50 still.
That's true.
I do,
That's
Mike.
true.
I do. But I appreciate your time, Mike. Definitely great walking down memory lane. We reserve the right to call and follow up with some other stuff with you and keep you on the radar here. And, we're going to get this up here.
Good to see you. Great to see you again, man.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a good night.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.